Right, a dossier of planetary astrology. This is the terrestrial dossier, Earth considered as a body in the chart and what it casts upon us daily. Prepare for the considered reader or work of symbolic and contemplative art. Really quick, before we get started, this is follow-up in a series of Telluric astrology where we go over Earth and the astrology of Earth, and we'll look more into that. But this time, we're doing it with the help of Claude Anthropic AI, and I just want to mention that. So please subscribe, like, comment, share if you dare, and care with peace and love, and I really appreciate you watching. So the contents we see here, the premise, reading Earth as a chart point, Earth's natal signature, astrocartography of the solar field, the Sol-Terra axis, seasons as macrocosmic mood, the Earth-Moon dyad, tide, sleep, and feeling, the terrestrial aspect wheel, planet-by-planet effects, the diurnal wheel, planetary hours of the day, the geomagnetic undertone, the daily practice, living in rhythm with the chart, and a glossary of terms. So here is a note on register. This dossier treats the Earth itself as though it were a chart point, the way natal chart treats a person's moment of birth. It borrows a vocabulary of astrology, aspects, houses, rulerships, planetary hours, and turns that vocabulary toward the planet we already stand on, asking what it would mean to read Earth's daily turning, its tilt, its tides, and its place among the other world as a kind of ambient symbolism for human life. It is offered as a work of symbolic and contemplative writing, a genre with real astronomy underneath it, and real imagination laid on top, not as an empirical claim about causation. So here's the premise, reading the Earth as though it were a point in its own chart. Conventional astrology is geocentric by convention, meaning it places Earth at the center of the wheel and reads the sky as a set of influences arriving from outside. This dossier inverts the exercise. It asks what happens if Earth is not treated as a fixed stage but as a character in the play, a body with a tilt, a spin, a wobble, an orbit, and a set of relationships to its neighbors, all of which already shape human life on a schedule for more verifiable than any transit. The day, the season, the tide, the year. 3 real physical rhythms of the Earth anchor everything that follows, and each is given a symbolic reading alongside its plane mechanism. So we have the spin, 1 rotation every 23 hours, 56 minutes, each year as Earth's own ascendant in motion. The wheel that turns a new face toward the sun every few minutes and gives each hour of the day its own borrowed planetary tone. Then we have the tilt, which is 23.4 degrees off the plane of its orbit. Read here as Earth's fixed natal angle, the geometry that produces the seasons and symbolically the long emotional weather of a year. The companion is the moon at just under 30 days per circuit, read here as Earth's nearest dance partner, pulling the oceans and by extension of the metaphor, the tides of mood and rest. So what follows takes each of these mechanisms and dresses it in the language of the chart, being aspects, rulers, houses, and hours, and we'll read it as a lens, not a law. So here is Earth's natal signature, according to Claude Anthropic. If the planet itself had a chart, here is how the dossier casts it. In this framework, Earth is given a symbolic triad of placements drawn from its own physical character rather than a birth moment. Since the Earth's birth, a creation roughly 4.54 billion years ago has no clock time in the ordinary sense. Instead, these 3 placements are assigned by correspondence to physical fact. So we got the placement, symbolic value, as well as correspondence. So we see the sun signs symbolic value is Virgo, and by correspondence to Earth's rule as the sign of the material, the cultivated, and the bodily, the planet that grows things and metabolizes them. Rising temperament, Capricorn. By correspondence to Earth's density, structure, and the sheer patience of geological time, mountains, plates, and the slow architecture of stone. Ruling element, Earth, literal, the one placement that is not a metaphor. Earth is the element it names, the ground every other symbol stands on it. So, governing rhythm is 23 hours 56 minutes spin, 365.25 day orbit, and 23.4 degrees tilt. And the 3 numbers that generate respectively the day, the year, and the seasons. Reading the signature, a Virgo-toned Capricorn tempered Earth is, in the old symbolic vocabulary, a planet oriented to maintenance over spectacle, harvest, seasons, tectonic patience, the slow accumulation of soil, Nothing about human life happens outside this rhythm. Sleep, appetite, mood, and even hormone cycles are entrained in real physiology to the light and dark produced by Earth's spin. The symbolic reading and the literal mechanism point the same direction. Whatever else is happening astrologically overhead, the ground beneath is already the most powerful clock a body has. And here we see astrocartography of the solar field with Earth's position within the heliocentric lattice of influence. And essentially, Earth's position within the heliocentric field, the dashed line marks its Sol-Terra axis, the single relationship of all the planet's relationships that most governs daily human life. Astrocartography of the solar field in mapping Earth's place among its neighbors. So astrocartography in conventional practice maps how a natal chart projects onto lines drawn across a map of the Earth. Places where a given planet sits on the horizon are overhead at the moment and place of birth. Here the exercise is taken up a level. Instead of projecting a person's chart onto the Earth's surface, the section maps the Earth's own position within the solar system's field, the way an astrocartographer would map any other body. Read spatially rather than temporally, three things stand out about Earth's placement in the solar field. The factor in reading, we see position here as third planet from the Sun, first of the rocky inner worlds to carry liquid water at its surface. Neighbors, inward Mercury and Venus, worlds of heat and pressure. Outward Mars, then the gas giants Jupiter and Saturn, whose gravity helps shepherd debris away from the inner system. And at belt position, sits inside the frost line in the band warm enough to keep water liquid. Astronomers call this the habitable or Goldilocks zone. Symbolically, a planet situated in the temperate house of its solar system, neither scorched like Mercury nor frozen like Neptune, is read as an emblem of balance. A chart placement associated in the star series vocabulary with moderation, mediation, and the capacity to hold extremes without being ruled by either. Every world is a room in the same house. Earth's room simply keeps its windows at a livable temperature. We have the Sol-Terra axis here. Seasons read as a year's long macrocosmic mode. So because Earth's axis is tilted 23.4 degrees relative to its orbital plane, the angle at which sunlight strikes any given hemisphere changes continuously across the year. This also reads 4 cardinal points of that cycle, the 2 solstices and 2 equinoxes, as a year's 4 angular houses, each with a symbolic weather to match its literal one. We got the point here, date, angle arrow, and that symbolic reading. So first we see the spring equinox, March 20th, ascendant of the year, day and night in balance symbolically in a threshold, initiation, planting new ventures begun in daylight that now outpaces dark. Summer solstice, June 21st, midheaven of the year, longest light symbolically of the year's public peak visibility, output, exposure, the noon of the annual chart. Autumn equinox, September 22nd, descendant of the year, balance restored on the way down, symbolically the turn toward relationship, harvest, and the reckoning of what the light have produced. Winter solstice, December 21st, Moon Cole of the year, longest dark, symbolically the year's private floor, rest, root, interior work, the midnight from which the next cycle is seated. None of this requires belief and influence to be useful as description. Human institutions the world over, harvest festivals, fiscal years, cool calendars, midwinter holidays, already organize themselves around these 4 points because the light really does change underfoot. The symbolic overlay simply names what the culture is already doing. The Earth-Moon dyad. Tides sleep in the felt sense of a monthly rhythm. No relationship in this dossier is more physically demonstrable than the one between Earth and its moon. Lunar gravity raises real tides in Earth's oceans, and it's a subtler and more contested register. He has long been associated in folk and symbolic traditions with sleep, mood, and the rhythms of the body, roughly on a 29.5-day cycle from new moon to new moon. Here's a lunar tide of daily life, and we see that 2 curves across 1 lunar month. The literal gravitational pull, teal, traditional emotional receptivity motif, long associated with the waxing and waning moon, is gold. So I should probably color code that. Jesus Christ. Alright, so the two are not the same claim. One is measured, the other is inherited symbolism, and the chart is honest about holding both without merging them. So again, we get the gravitational pull index and traditional emotional receptivity motif. And we see that this lunar tide at daily life, starting at the new moon, and we see the fluctuations going up when it's the first quarter moon, and down for the gravitational pull index, but up for the traditional emotional receptivity motif. And the full moon is down in regards to traditional emotional receptivity motif, and for gravitational pull index, it is going up and going down again after that last quarter. And during that, we see that that curve is going up for the traditional emotional receptivity motif. And then, of course, 29.5 days. So, what the chart is careful to show here, and what a less careful dossier would blur, is that these are two different kinds of line, okay? So the gravitational curve is physics, meaning it's measurable, predictable, and different to belief, while the receptivity curve is a folk motif, and that's inherited across centuries of symbolic practice, not a measured quantity. Holding both on one page is the whole method of this document. Literal mechanism in one color, inherited meaning in another, never presented the same kind of fact. Alright, the terrestrial aspect wheel. 9 bodies, 9 relationships to the ground beneath. In a conventional chart, an aspect describes the angular relationship between 2 points as seen from Earth. Here, aspects are instead assigned illustratively for the shape of the reading, rather than as a computed ephemeris, to describe a symbolic relationship between Earth and each of its solar system neighbors, paired with the everyday human domain. Each is traditionally read to touch. This is the terrestrial aspect wheel. Line style encodes aspect type. Each is illustrative of a symbolic relationship, rather than a computed transit for any specific date. So these are aspects between Earth and the classical and modern bodies of the cycle. So we have the aspect key here for conjunction, your trine, sextile, square, and opposition. And we also have from Aries to Pisces. We see that Earth is smack dab in the middle. Then we can understand that Earth is making a square with Uranus, and it's also squaring Mars. We notice that there's a trine with the Earth and Jupiter, as well as with Earth and the Moon. We notice that Earth is conjunct the Sun, as well as, not Saturn, but Venus, and then it's opposition Saturn. And squaring Mars and Uranus. So, what can this tell us? Just by looking at this terrestrial aspect wheel, we can understand that Uranus is in Aries, and Uranus and Aries squaring the Earth. Sun's in Taurus is conjunct the Earth. Forgot about Mercury. In Gemini, and it's sextiling the Earth. We have Venus in Cancer making conjunction to Earth. We have Neptune sextiling the Earth. We have Mars square the Earth. We have Jupiter trine the Earth. We have Saturn opposition the Earth. We have Moon trine the Earth. So let's go into more detail. So the Sun is conjunct the Earth. And the Sun is vitality, its identity, the daily rhythm of waking and working. Moon is trine the Earth. Emotion, tides, sleep-wake cycle, domestic rhythm. Mercury sextile the Earth. Cognition, communication, commerce, the day's information flow. Venus conjunct the Earth is attraction, aesthetic value, relational warmth. Mars square the Earth. Drive, friction, assertive will, the urge to act. Jupiter trine the Earth is growth, expansion, confidence, good fortune. We see Saturn opposition the Earth. Structure, limitation, discipline, the weight of obligation. Uranus square the Earth. Disruption, innovation, sudden and unscheduled change. And Neptune sextile Earth. Dreams, intuition, imagination, the dissolving of hard edges. So here's the diurnal wheel. planetary hours, the day's oldest timekeeping symbolism. And long before mechanical clocks, the Chaldean system divided daylight and darkness into 12 hours each, assigning a planetary ruler to every hour in a fixed rotating sequence. So Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon, and repeating. The system does not track modern clock hours of equal length. It divides the actual daylight and actual night into 12 parts each. So an hour is longer in summer daylight than in winter daylight. And the wheel below simplifies this onto a standard 24-hour clock face for for clarity, using a Sunday sunrise start as its illustrative anchor. So here's the diurnal wheel. One full rotation of Earth, divided into planetary hours by the classical Chaldean sequence. So the Chaldean sequence, each hour of Earth's rotation is ruled by a body shaping the days on the dome. 24 planetary hours, sunrise cycle. Over one rotation, these are the planetary hours. So we can clearly see, starting at 00 hours to 23 hours exactly, beginning with the Sun and ending with Mercury. Sun, Venus, then we're at Mercury, Moon, Saturn, and this is throughout the day. Jupiter, Mars, Sun, 7 hours into the day, Venus, 8 hours in, Mercury, 9 hours in, Moon, 10 hours in, Saturn, 11 hours in, Jupiter, 12 hours in, Mars, 13 hours in, Sun, 14 hours in, Venus, 15 hours in, Mercury, 16 hours in, Moon, 17 hours in, Saturn, 18 hours in, Jupiter, 19 hours in, Mars, 20 hours in, Sun at 21 hours in, 22 hours in, we got Venus, and then finally Mercury, 23 hours. So the symbolic use of this wheel is in daily life. It is simple. It offers a ritual container for choosing when to begin a given kind of work. A Venus hour for difficult reconciliation, a Mercury hour for correspondence, a Moon hour for rest. None of this claims to outperform ordinary judgment about timing. It functions the way any structured ritual does, by asking a person to pause and choose deliberately rather than default automatically. Alright, we got a few more pages left. Let's talk about the geomagnetic undertone. Earth's home field as background hum. Beneath any symbolic reading sits a literal one. Earth generates its own magnetic field, produced by the churn of molten iron in its outer core, and that field in turn shapes a measurable electromagnetic resonance in the cavity between the planet's surface and its ionosphere. The Schumann resonance, centered near 7.83 Hz, it is real, measured, and unrelated to any specific planetary alignment. It is a property of Earth's own atmosphere, reacting to its own lightning activity, discovered by physicist Winfried Otto Schumann in 1952. The saucer includes it for a specific reason. It is the clearest example available of a genuinely planetary rhythm, something Earth itself produces. Continuously independent of the other bodies in its chart, popular wellness culture has attached a wide range of claims to this frequency, many of them well beyond what the physics supports. Dossier's own position is narrower, that Earth's electromagnetic environment is real, is a background condition of daily life, and is worth naming honestly, rather than either dismissing or overselling. The Earth is not only a stage lit by other bodies, it hums on its own frequency too. Daily practice here, living in rhythm with the chart without overclaiming what it can do. The practical offer of this saucer is modest by design. A short daily frame that borrows the symbolism above is a container for attention, not a forecasting tool. None of the substitutes for medical, psychological, or financial guidance. It is offered as a contemplative rhythm, not a method of prediction or diagnosis. So it's frame and practice. So morning, sun, ascendant hour. Set one intention key to vitality and identity. What's today? Ask of your energy, specifically midday, Mercury, Venus hours. Handle correspondence, negotiation, and relational repair during the hours traditionally read as most communicative. Evening moon hour. Wind down with a traditional receptive hour. Review the day without judgment. Note what the tide brought in. Monthly new and full moon. Use the 2 lunar poles as check-in points. New moon for setting a small intention, full moon for an honest review. Seasonal, the 4 cardinal points mark equinoxes and solstices as quarterly reviews, the year's own natural quarter days, older than any fiscal calendar. In glossary terms, short reference for vocabulary used throughout. So, an aspect in conventional astrology is the angular distance between 2 chart points, used here symbolically to describe Earth's relationship to another body. Astrocartography, a mapping technique that projects a chart onto geography, extended here to map Earth's own place within the solar field. Chaldean order, the classical sequence of the 7 visible planetary bodies used to assign rulers to each hour of the day: Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon. Ephemeris, a table giving the positions of celestial bodies at given times. Stossier uses illustrative, not computed, placement throughout. Frostline, the distance from the sun beyond which volatile compounds condense into solid ice. Earth sits well inside it. Habitable zone, the orbital band around a star, sometimes called the Goldilocks zone, warm enough to sustain liquid water at a planet's surface. Schumann resonance, a set of extremely low frequency electromagnetic resonances in Earth's ionosphere cavity, centered near 7.83 Hz. Solstice equinox, the 2 points of maximum axial tilt toward or away from the sun, solstices, and the 2 points where day and night are equal, equinoxes. I hope you learned something from this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Piscean out.